Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes. Now, for all you entrepreneurs who feel burned out, I actually have brought on a real life supergirl who's going to teach us how to be unstoppable. So, welcome, Jen Grosso, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be on the podcast, and we were just chatting. And I love your vibe. I love what you're putting out there in the world, and I'm excited to be on the podcast with
See,
you.
I took your bio and I shortened it, and now you're just the real life supergirl.
Thank you. See, amazing. Yeah, that's so. Right before this, we were talking about how I sent you all the materials, that I thought I was supposed to send you because I wasn't sure. And I was like, wow, like sometimes when you read your own bio, you sound like, ugh, gross. I might need to rework that a little. So, yeah,
But it's all good, you know.
it is all good.
I probably have like three actual listeners.
Only three. Well, then I picked the right one to want to be on. Those
That's
three are
right.
my future clients.
No,
They're
I
gonna love
yeah.
me.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every listener out there, and I make fun, and I'm very sarcastic, and they know that. But the whole prime reason I've started this, as I share with you, and I share with the audience all the time, is so that you guys can share your unique superpowers with my audience, and hopefully that they can become a better entrepreneur from it. But I like to pick unique people that I believe demonstrate, those cool superpowers that we all wish we had. And that's why I brought you on because, you're showing stuff out there and exhibiting stuff and proving to the world that you can do this. And the whole become unstoppable thing and the chaos to confidence thing, a lot of that is what entrepreneurs need right now.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I have seen working with people for so many years is that they're just people. There are people behind these businesses, and they don't just have what's going on in their business or what you see online. They have real and significant personal challenges and all sorts of things that are complicating the mix of being an entrepreneur. And yet they're trying to their best to show up every single day in great energy and be positive about what they're passionate about. They're always so passionate about their work, but when all of these kinds of things create that chaos, this perfect storm, sometimes they find themselves completely burned out. And the one thing that I found, no matter what, was that they were leaving themselves on the table. They were sacrificing themselves on the altar of success, thinking they had to go all in on the business all the time, and couldn't see, radical self-care or like paying attention to themselves at all
Right.
as part of a business strategy. It is. It's part of it. If you leave your humanness on the table, you won't be as successful, and you certainly won't be sustainably successful. It just became my passion to go in that direction.
Yeah, I guess the first 10 years of being an entrepreneur, I thought, 18 hours a day is normal.
Yeah.
But it was not normal to my family because they wanted me there. They wanted my attention. They wanted me to take them places and do stuff. And I thought, well, I got to create this and do this and help my clients and be available. And but as I got older and I still had passion, but it was to the point where I wanted to travel. I wanted to do all these great things that people told me about, and I couldn't do those things if I was working 18 hours.
Right. You get on that hamster wheel, and all of a sudden, and especially for those who left corporate. I was a big law attorney at one point, and part of the appeal was I'm going to get freedom and fulfillment. I'm going to wear that entrepreneur badge and run with it, and it's going to make me so free. And the problem is that you don't really think through what that actually means, and you can sometimes drive yourself to work more and worse in terms of workload than when you had a job. And
Mhm.
I found myself on many occasions in that place where I'm like, wow, like what did I do to myself? I think my lawyer job where I'm complaining about billing hours was easier than this. But I was the one who did it to myself. I was the one who would make an 18-hour a day, uh, I made that happen. And I was the only way out too.
Yeah. Nowadays I look at my schedule and thinking, okay, great, I'm working 4 hours today, and my neighbors look at me like, what do you actually do? Always at home, and you know, I'm like, dude, I work from home. They're like, yeah, but what do you do? And I try to explain it to them, and they're like, yeah, whatever. You know, they just see me at home all the time. And I'm like, but I used to work for 18 hours a day. Now I'm working like four, and they just don't get it. And
Yeah.
and then they're like, wait a minute, you've written so many books. What? You're not that smart. No,
Well, we both know that entrepreneurship doesn't actually require that you have to be that smart. It's
proof
not a
here.
it's not a requirement. It can happen. You can be successful without it. But yeah, I think that the tough part is, and certainly for me, the tough part was how do you go from working all the time to saying, okay, I know it's me and I know this can be better and I don't have to be all in all the time. The all in idea really irritates me. I get it on some level. We do have to work hard. We have to work for what we're going to do, but that all in grind can ruin you. So it's then how do you bridge that gap? If you've been on that train, you bought that hook, line, and sinker that you had to be working the whole time and you had to be fully available, like you were saying, and like I've done. How do you go from the 18 hours a day situation to, all right, Rob said he wrote, 8 books and now he works 4 hours and it looks like he doesn't do anything. How'd that guy do it? And sometimes I think, you probably have this happen all the time. I have clients ask me, they're like, no, 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 they had something happen. Like they got a windfall somehow. Like some aunt died with they're a trust fund. It's like they think you're a unicorn if you can make it happen. And how did you do it? Right? That's what it is. So it's that, all right, now I know I'm in a bad place, but I have no idea other than going back and like setting it all on fire. I'm all and that's where people are when they're burned out, when they have had enough, they've reached that point. We're joking around, but sometimes it's bad. You get to a point where you're done and you are ready to burn it all to the ground and go get a job. And you don't want that corporate job either. You're like, where's the job where I can just like, I'm gonna be a baker. I'm gonna go and bake some bread and I'm gonna give people bread and they're gonna want the bread and they're not gonna be aggravated about my giving. Like they think that there's some job where they can just make some stuff and give it to some people and that'll be better and they'll be able to sleep at night.
No.
Yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years. I started my first business in 1995. Well, it would be my second business, but that's the one that lasted forever. And
Yeah.
I had a carpet cleaning business. And what I learned in dealing with customers and in that carpet cleaning business for almost 20 years has allowed me to become the coach that I am, and teach people and write books, and all those experiences, all that sarcasm, all that life lessons. They go into every single book, and that's what I tell people. I said, look, you're the experiences that you have are unique to you, but you could write a book, and people will buy that book, and you'll become the authority in what you do. And they're like, yeah, I can't write. Well, you know what? I probably got F's in grammar throughout school. English was not a subject that if you say, hey, Rob, in so many years you're going to write books, I'd be going, yeah, right. And I probably still can't write, but that's what autocorrect's for. So,
Right. Autocorrect, the whole team of editors. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. Nobody cares about an Oxford comma except for like professors or
and
something.
if you read my books today, I'm sure you'll find errors and things that need fixed. But do I care? No, because the content that's in a book will help you become better at who you are. And if you're looking at all the misinformation or the errors, you're never gonna learn what you really need to learn.
No, the beauty of it's all in the message
Mhm.
and how that connects with you, and like you're saying, the stories. The stories teach better than some sort of sentence structure that makes someone, way back when I went to Catholic school, so nuns really cared
So
about diagrams or
do
sentences, things like that, and I'm happy to let that kind of thing go. I will confess, at one time I was an editor, so one of the fun things that people think when they give me anything in writing that I'm going to be, like I'm ready, like I've got that red pen and I just can't wait to tell them all of their grammatical errors. But the truth is that's half the time whenever I read as an editor, I was reading for how did it sound?
Mhm.
How did it land on me? How did it make me feel? We did pay attention to grammar because you had to, that was part of the job. But, and where your punctuation was. But that actually taught me a really great lesson in confidence was that job, and I had a team under me of editors as well. I learned that you can't pick up a book without errors. You if you go pick up the New York Times, it has errors on the front page, and that's something that was cycled through some of the best editors that are out there.
Yeah.
And what that tells you, especially like that lesson for entrepreneurship, is if you are so focused on perfection, you're never going to confidently release what you have to release in the world, whether that's your actual work, your first version of your product, your first manuscript to the publisher. Like you won't do anything if you're busy worrying about details like how many spaces there are between this period and that period. It's unnecessary. Like get it out there and, like do a good job, but not a perfect one.
Well, it's the whole Microsoft Apple effect. You put a product out, it's not perfect, and 15 seconds after you release it, there's an update. Oh, okay, I gotta update it, and then another week, another update, 30 some updates later, you're like, oh, should it be perfect? No, it's still full of errors, but we
Absolutely.
accept it because it is what it is. But
Right.
one of the things that I hated in English was diagramming. I still can't diagram a sentence. I have no idea the function of that thing.
Yep.
But you know what? There's going to be a lot of things businesses, business owners don't like to do, don't want to do.
That's
Have
right.
no idea what the purpose of something is. Don't let it stop you. If I had let diagramming a sentence affect
Right.
me, I would have never written all these books.
That's right. That's right. And I think too, that if you're letting stuff like that stop you, that contributes to burnout. That contributes to all of that overwork.
Hmm.
It's not being willing to say, okay, this is the minimum viable product. This is the minimum viable piece of content. This is the minimum viable draft for today. It's time to check out and recharge my batteries so I can come back, and then version 2, with the update is better. But
Yeah.
version 2 doesn't happen until you have some feedback. It doesn't happen until you've let that thing sit there and live for a little, and then you come back at it with fresh eyes. And that's a huge part of it is really giving up that self-created chaos that keeps us out of confidence by focusing on things that shouldn't be focused on.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's talk about feedback because
Yeah.
one of my books, the first Rob versus the Scammers book, and it was my take on dealing with these Visa Mastercard scammers all day long.
So
And
fun.
I put it out there, and the first person that I wanted to give me a good review said, "This isn't a book. This is just a collection of stories." Yeah, it is. It's a collection of stories.
Right, that's a book.
So I gave it to a bunch of other people, and they just loved it, and they laughed and laughed and laughed, and I'm like, that's my audience.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because sometimes we rely on just one or two people to give us feedback, and it kills our creativity, and then we don't do anything. Let the world know what you're doing, and if 8 out of 10 people say do it, and then 2% say, hey, it's horrible, don't listen to them. Go out and do it.
That's right. They're the outliers. They don't matter. You have something viable. Right, there are people, and even if you go back to the phone too, like you were talking about, there are people who we know them, right? We have the diehard Apple people, like they're gonna live with that, and then there's the other people who are Android all the
Mhm.
way, and they would never touch an Apple product, and it's like almost like a religion to them. Well, it doesn't matter. The people who are Android only are never going to buy from Apple, and so they don't even have to worry about those people. They just focus on their market
Yeah.
and focus on what you resonate with. And when you get dialed in and focus that way, it does. It helps you, I think, just function better as an entrepreneur. God, I mean, it's so funny. I feel like a broken record, and even I'm sure you feel like it, you hear it. Like, why do people try to please everyone
Right.
all the time? And it's what you're saying. Like, why would you listen to one critic?
Mhm.
Who cares? Who cares? There's somebody else, who can sell to them.
Yeah. I to me, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I don't please anybody.
Yeah, you only get people to buy when they want to learn how to offend others, right?
That's right. Yeah.
They want the model, the master.
And sometimes we live for the compliments, but we do have to learn from the people who don't like us.
Yeah.
And the reason I say we have to learn from them is that we learn that they're there. We don't have to cater to them. Um,
Yes.
the problem is entrepreneurs, they think they have to cater to everybody and they have to say yes to everybody. And I'm telling you, you don't. But who am I? I've only been doing this for 27 years.
Yeah. I have a fun activity I do with the people that I work with, and it's the absolute no list.
Yeah.
And it's getting them comfortable. These are things you're no longer going to say yes to. And it's because right, it's maybe it's a little bit of FOMO, it's a little bit of bright, shiny object syndrome, all those things that are often placed on entrepreneurs. And that's why they end up with such a full plate too, is that they say yes to things. I love starting out with the things they've said yes to that they don't want to say yes to.
Right.
Right. And I mean, sometimes there are things that we just have to say yes to, like for instance, if you're a parent, there are things that you have to say yes to because you signed up for that job, that they're not fun or pleasant, right, for example. But like changing diapers, that was not fun, but whatever. You do what you do. But then there are things too, like I know I have done it. I've said yes to clients I knew I shouldn't have, in some ways, like even taking on the client. And you want to talk about something that'll burn you out fast. Woo, it's taking on it is taking on a client that's really not an ideal one for you. It
And
just
I,
it
I
just
call those PETAs, pain in the asses.
oh, yeah,
you
that
know,
is what
and
they
I
suck
know
it.
I know right away if they're going to be a PETA. And there's been times where I've taken on clients because I know my employees need to eat.
Well, there's that.
And it has burned us so quickly. And I'm like, and then the employees are like, Rob, don't ever take on a job like that. We will starve to death first.
Right.
No good deed goes unpunished, right? So
That's right. That's right. But and I think, don't you think you have to learn those lessons? I mean, you and I can say that to people and say not to take that client, but it's really tough when you're in that situation. I mean,
yeah.
that's the reality. It's really tough. I mean, especially if you're in that place where you are, you do have a team and you are responsible to pay them. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders. And so the dollars and the cash flow always matter. And like, where's that next client coming from? And how am I going to meet payroll?
Right.
And I'm probably in a lot of trouble if I don't meet payroll, like as well. Like the government's not happy when I don't do that either. So they don't like that. And so you can sometimes make those decisions, and I think that those are necessary lessons, right? Those are necessary lessons too, to say, all right, I don't ever want to have to work with these kind of people again, so how can I set myself up a little bit better so I'm not in this place where I find I'm trying to scramble for the client, and so I will take that low hanging fruit. I posted something, I don't know if you saw it, but was like low hanging fruit will keep you fed, but so will digging through the garbage. don't remember. Don't forget that. Like, remember, like, it's, the quality of what you get sometimes can really burn you in the end.
Yeah,
And
it's and I think that's the problem is that we all have this glisten in our eye. We all want to have the fame and fortune of being an entrepreneur, and so we take on everything that we
mm,
can get, and then we slowly decide, hey, yeah, that person's not worth it. That person's not worth it. No way. No. And you start reaching for higher quality clients. But in the meantime, you're getting slapped back and forth, and I think that was the reason why you created this Bold Fire Institute,
yes,
to
yes,
help teach
absolutely.
entrepreneurs
I
better.
started, yeah, yeah. So what happened is I started out as a coach early on, and I would take on anyone, and like, bring it on, let me get the experience, and um let me work with as many people as possible, and that had some benefits. I learned a lot. But like I said, so many of these entrepreneurs, because they were missing really some foundational pieces in their game, it was really hurting them. And one of the best ways to serve them was, yes, to help them grow their business. I mean, that's often why they would come. Like, I've got to make more money. But it was really going in and saying, all right, let's take a step back. Let's take a 300-foot view of your business and see what's really going on here. And there were really some key themes that I saw going on. And one of them was that they really lacked appropriate systems, especially if they were a very small team
Mhm.
or a solo business owner. So much of what that person was doing was in their head. And there weren't things like standard operating procedures. And, especially with a solo, they might do the same basic activity over and over and over again, but they might do it differently, and it would take time and stress from them and stress them out. And so part of my program is going in and saying, where can we systematize this? Where are you not automating or delegating appropriately as well? Like, do you have a team? Could you have a team? Are you doing $10 an hour work when really you should be focused, as the owner of the business, on higher level activities that are going to generate a profit for you, and use that brain power that you have and that creativity in the best way possible? And I mean, like, some obvious examples are you doing all your bookkeeping? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Can we put that on software? Like, what can we put on software? What kind of apps can you use? What kind of automation could be put in place? And then where do you need to hire and set up a team? Whether that's hiring, virtual assistant, whether it's actually hiring people within the business, whether it's hiring someone who just comes in and does a certain project for you. And where are you missing out on that? And there's you can only become so successful on your own without help.
Right.
And that's not really sustainable. So it's really helping walk them through that process. What it also does is look at the team that they do. Like, sometimes they do, like I said, have a small team or something in place, and so we look at what's going on there. Is it functioning well? The amazing thing is when I have business owners who have a team, but they still have everything that resides in their head, and they're pissed at their team. Right? They're like, these people aren't delivering what I want them to deliver. Well, and that's when we go in there and they have someone like me, and I'm not a fluffy bunny coach. Like, I tell it like it is. I'm like, how could you possibly think that they're not mind
Right.
readers? I don't know what you're thinking till you tell me. And, like, by the way, what you just told me is nuts. How could they possibly do that? You haven't even given them the tools. So it is a little bit of like, you went into business for all that autonomy, and my goal is to go in there and reflect back to you. Listen, you set up this business in a way that makes it, a time suck and something that's burning you out. Let's get in there and let's be real about it. You
Right.
need systems, you need rituals, you need habits, you need a team. You need to be tracking your numbers,
Yeah.
your key performance indicators. And by the way, you can't just Google that. We need to figure out which ones work for your business, right? Like, you had a carpet cleaning business. There were key indicators there and managing your numbers that aren't the same as your coaching business. right? There are, and if you are in, if you're in the restaurant business, the numbers that you're tracking, what's relevant. I also owned businesses before, in addition to the coaching and consulting business and that work. I owned a gym and I owned a real estate brokerage at one point. And the numbers and what we tracked and how those living, breathing businesses functioned were very different. But if you're not tracking the right numbers, you don't have the right information and you're stressed out all the time.
Right.
I will say the one metric you all have to, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not tracking your cash flow for real, not just, okay, I have enough money in my bank account,
Right.
like real tracking and projection, that's the lifeblood. That's the oxygen for your business. And then I'll just throw out the other two are like what's going on in your head, your mindset, like how many and we were talking about that, the confidence, the perfection paralysis, the stuff that gets in your head that holds you back. And then the last one is, are you taking care of yourself?
Right.
And it's this concept of, and it's a whole pillar in my program, and they have to tell me every day, are you taking radically good care of yourself? Now, some people think because I owned a gym, that means I'm going to go in there and be like, all right, we're going to, which boot camp? It's Bold Fire Boot Camp. It is not Bold Fire Boot Camp. I'm not going to tell you what to eat, but I am going to go in there and say, like, by the way, have you noticed that you're not living very well? If you're not sleeping, if you're not doing some basic things, if you're not hydrated, like here's one, if you don't hydrate, you have absolutely interrupted your ability to be fully productive. Your creativity goes down. You've automatically raised your anxiety. And you can increase your productivity by being hydrated by 14%. Now, everyone knows they should drink their water. They've been told by their mom, their spouse, their partner, their doctor. They've seen it on the news. They know to do it, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm in there is to remind them that you're not productive and you didn't get it done in part because you're dehydrated and you're not focusing well. So why on earth is something that's as simple as water not happening? It's so dumb. Like you're being dumb. That's dumb.
And
Do it.
right there is probably the prime reason I get more done in 4 hours a day than most people get done all week.
You're super hydrated.
I'm hydrated, but I'm hyper focused because when you're not drinking the wrong stuff or you're not drinking enough, you're just lagging through the day. Oh, I need my coffee. I need this. Dude, just get rid of all that crap.
Yeah, you're anxious. I've heard people say like entrepreneurs are always in trouble because they're putting out fires all day long. Yeah, guess what? That's part of it. Yeah. You're going to put out fires all day long. If you're not hydrated and focused and ready to go and you haven't set yourself up to be the kind of person who can handle that fire drill, then you're not going to be successful.
Right.
And it is just proven. There's so much data. If you take care of yourself, if you are healthy, and whatever that means to you, right? Like you don't have to be an endurance runner. You don't have to be David Goggins and run 100 miles and prove how gritty you are. You don't. But you do have to take care of yourself. And that has to be part of it, so that you can be focused, so that you can make good and clear decisions that aren't based in fear and anxiety and a lack of confidence. You make crappy decisions if you're tired, So I bet you get pretty good sleep if you're working 4 hours a day. No, I'm wrong. Totally wrong.
I have an old dog, and he gets up at 12:30, 2:30, and sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's
yeah. Well, that's no fun. And then I will also say, so it's I have clients too who have they just had a baby, right? Like you just had a baby, yeah. Well, you're not sleeping, right? So that's where you customize, and with coaching people, you often have to customize it to them and their situation. And so, all right, so we're just going to acknowledge that this is a stage of life where sleep is not going to be ideal. So let's make sure everything else is. Let's make sure everything that you can do, so that you are as we can put you in a place where you're as Teflon as possible against burning out. Let's do that.
Right.
And that goes back to that, sometimes taking radically good care of yourself is saying no.
Oh, and also, taking radically good care of yourself requires vacations. And if you're not charging
Eh,
enough money, you're not going to ever take those vacations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A proper pricing strategy is radically good care of yourself.
Hmm.
Hiring a team, hiring an effective team is taking radically good care of yourself. Buying that software that's going to automate things, that's a little bit of a stretch for you, that's part of it. that's
Hmm.
that's and learning and setting aside the time to learn how to do it, all of those things. I think that people don't even realize that those things are part of their problem, and that's why you need someone who's objective on the outside to come in and say you're doing it wrong. What are you doing? It doesn't matter what lead gen strategy I give you to get clients if you don't clean up your act.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You can go on YouTube and learn half the things that you need,
Yeah.
for free.
Well,
It's
I
like,
tell
come on.
clients all day long, I can get you clients, but if you don't have a mechanism where you're taking that lead and making it into a client, it's not my fault.
It's not. It's not. Here, you can hand it on a silver platter.
Hmm.
And if there isn't a process, right? Like, what's your customer journey look like?
Right.
What happens when someone came into to your carpet business? If you don't have that mapped out, you don't know what you're going to do with it, and you're winging it every time. Whoa, you are not going to make money over time, and you're definitely going to burn out
Well,
fast.
and I've told this story before to a lot of people is, when I started the cleaning business in 1995, my slogan was, "We clean your carpet, not your wallet." And I wanted all these people to know that I wasn't expensive. The problem is I only attracted people that had no money. And
Yeah,
so after 2 years, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going broke. And I completely, got rid of that slogan, changed the
beautiful.
slogan to something else. And I started going after higher end clients by targeting their neighborhoods. And, my prices probably went up 200%, but I was getting better types of clients.
And you probably reduce. I mean, not. You definitely reduced your stress level.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You.
Because I was able to not only make more money, but we were able to buy better equipment. We were able to expand. We were able to do all these things that, I didn't feel stressed out about anymore.
Right, right. Sometimes the pinching the pennies in the business and this whole concept of going super lean is taken so far that it's not sustainable. It's burning you out. It's almost a guarantee that you're going to you're going to fail if you don't regroup.
It is.
And so that's I mean my mission really, honestly, like we were talking about stories early on. My story, and where my if it's okay for if you can indulge me for just another couple of minutes. My dad owned his own business, and he owned a professional cleaning service, and it had like a construction element to it. So they would send people out to clean office buildings, but they would also like strip and wax grocery store floors, or if you had a massive like construction cleanup, they'd hire the crews that came in and took things away. But my dad at 37, he had a small crew and he was awesome, but he didn't have, by his own admission, he didn't have everything set up really exactly the way it should have been, including he didn't have disability insurance. And he was in a diving accident. And that he was so hands-on in the business with no real way for anyone to know, like even the people who came in to try to help when he was holed up in the hospital and they weren't sure if he was, it took him a year to learn how to walk again and things like that. I watched from the inside what that did and how quickly things went south, and I learned a lot because I was 16 and I was trying to run that business by myself. So I learned a lot about trying to run a business. I wish sometimes I wonder if I wonder if ShopRite knew that they were negotiating with the 16-year-old. I bet they didn't. And then when I went to law school, I remember the first time I was like, "Oh, all those contracts I negotiated, they were invalid." because I wasn't old enough to negotiate a contract. Hilarious. But I learned so much, and I think like on a deep level inside, in many ways, I'm trying to save people from something like that happening to them. And if you can, and it wasn't. He just didn't know. He just didn't even know it was possible. He didn't really think, he was trying to save all the money to be able to pump it to his family and be a good person. And, again, like not overcharge and all of those kinds of things. But if you have somebody who can guide you on that path, so, like not only do you create a life where you're taking better care of yourself, but you're also building the business in a way that it's an asset for your family that could be sold someday. And it's also a business that can fully support employees, and it can do a lot of good in the world that way. Like you hear so much about purpose driven businesses, because they're changing people's lives. Well, your carpet cleaning business changed people's lives by giving people jobs and the opportunity to feed their family and contribute in that way. And I just firmly believe that, and that's why I love small business owners so much, and I love helping them in that way. And I know it does a lot of good when you get that kind of help.
And I sold that
So
business years ago, and the person who bought it
yeah.
sadly ran it to the ground in 6 months, and then I had my old clients
Yeah.
call me, "Hey, can you get back into the business? I really need my car." I'm like, "No, I'm done."
Yeah. Well, when you think about that person, like what did it take for them to have to, like, that's really sad.
Yeah,
What did
because
they
they
not
they
know?
didn't.
What could they have done if they had the right help and
Yeah.
guidance?
Here and I think one of the things in for carpet cleaning, and I see this in restaurants as well, is
Yeah.
that you copied everybody else's pricing, but you
Oh,
didn't understand that they had their own model of their expenses and whatnot, and now you're copying, going, "Oh, I'm going to charge 10 cents a room or whatever it was," and your competitors are doing the same, but maybe they have less expense than you. Maybe they have, or maybe they copied it from someone else.
yeah.
And so he said, the guy who bought this business from me, he says, "Oh, I can't charge what you're charging because I'm the new guy, and
Oh,
they're not going to trust me with the high prices, so I'll give it to them lower." I'm like, "Dude, you got to charge what I was charging because that's what they're expecting to pay."
that's that mindset.
Yeah,
You can't, and that's that mindset. That's a scarcity mindset issue. And it's amazing how, yeah, and that almost screams too of like imposter syndrome and a lack of confidence.
yeah,
And that comes up a lot, which is, basically like I'm too new to charge. Why? Nobody, right? Like, if and you think about it too, you use the example of the restaurant. If you made sushi and you made sushi, I'm not charging you less for the sushi because I'm new to making sushi and selling sushi. The sushi costs what it costs to make.
yeah.
And, definitely deliver, make sure it's good quality, all that kind of stuff that goes into that. But when you're going to, you know, put that out there, yeah, you can make a bargain pricing situation work in certain industries, in certain ways, but very often, you're right, we get caught up in pricing strategies that'll
Yeah.
burn you out, and really you sell yourself short, and then you wonder what happened. You're so stressed out, and the more volume you need in your business, sometimes the rougher it is.
Right. And I would rather be the highest price business in my area than the cheapest price, because at least then I know that I'm making enough money to sustain everything. The cheapest guy doesn't even have enough money to keep his equipment running.
Right, and they're always scraping it together. They're always trying to figure it out. It's yeah, and you end up attracting a very certain kind of a buyer as
Hmm.
well. And so it is definitely my mantra when I'm talking to business owners: don't sell to broke people.
Right.
It's like a virtual guarantee that you're going to be broke too. It really is.
So how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
So they can go to my website right now, boldfireinstitute.com, and if they'd like to, and you can put in your link there, and we can chat. I will, if they think they might want to work with me, I'm more than happy to have a connection call where they can see whether or not we resonate. It's so important when you have a coach or a consultant that the person resonates with you. And you got a feel for me today here on the podcast, but people always want to know when it's their situation. Do we resonate? Do we click? And I also really consider myself a dot connector. If I can't help you, I've I've been around for a long time. I have a strong network of people I trust and believe are credible, and I'm more than happy to direct people where they need to go. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Jennifer Grosso on LinkedIn. Boldfire Institute is up there as well. And the last place, if you are, someone who's still on Facebook and hanging out in that realm, I have a Facebook group. It's small. It's really, my goal there is not the numbers, it's the quality of the people who are inside. I'm bringing people in there to do experts to have conversations like this, but also to deliver value to people in the group. All sorts of things, things about how to do your LinkedIn marketing. We're bringing in some people even to talk about drop shipping. So not everything in that group is for you, but it might be from a business standpoint. But the things that are universally for all of the business owners that are in there is, how are we dealing with our mindset, and what are we doing to take radically good care of ourselves? And that's called the Mind Body Business Breakthroughs Facebook group. And they can absolutely go there. And I'd love to have your listeners stop by and say hello and see if I can help them out or send them in the right direction, like I said.
And that's what makes Jen an e-hero. Hey, this is Rob, and please, go over and connect with Jen, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Thank you.